Hello and welcome to the General's Reviews. I'm Chris McLeod, aka Diagnostik 80 from the Full Force podcast, and I'm joining Justin Bell from What's on Joe Mind and GeneralsJoes to bring you this review of the GIJoe Collectors Club FSS 4 Bullhorn. Before Justin takes a look at the figure, let's go into the history of the character from his first appearance through to now. In 1990, Hasbro released the first version of Bullhorn in the USA on a single GIJoe card. His file name was Stephen A. Ferreira, and he was born in Providence, Rhode Island, like so many of the characters, simply due to where Hasbro HQ was located. His primary specialty was intervention specialist, and his secondary was simply armour. He was an entirely new sculpt at the time and had some interesting design choices. His uniform was pretty standard looking but effective nonetheless. He had a green long sleeve shirt, brown pants, lighter brown boot covers with some dark brown accents, grey web gear, grey gloves, grey belt, moulded grey holster and gun on his right thigh, and grey boots as well as a string of grenades across his chest. His head sculpt was really cool as well. He had short black hair with a black thin headband, and he had brown camo paint on his face. He also came with a number of really slick accessories: a black and silver helmet, a black rifle, a green gas gun, a green bullhorn that attached to the gas gun, a 3-piece rifle with scope that could come apart, and a grey backpack case that held the rifle.
And look at GIJoe's new recruits, like Bullhorn, intervention specialist.
This version of the character saw use in a variety of media, but none more prominent than his appearances in the Deke cartoon series. He was a regular in the show, enjoying a lot of screen time. He was voiced by David Willis, who also voiced Ambush in Season 2, as well as Ozone and a Range Viper in one of the episodes. In 2008, the GIJoe Collectors Club released Bullhorn version 2. He was an exclusive figure for the 2008 International GIJoe Convention in Dallas, Texas, and came with the SWAT RTV vehicle. They used the head, body and arms from the original figure, and the waist and legs of 1992 version 3 Shockwave. The deco was different as well. The long sleeve shirt is a slightly brighter shade of green compared to version 1, the web gear and gloves are black, the string of grenades across his chest are white, and his headband is now green. The camo face paint is gone and he has an American flag patch on his left upper arm. The Shockwave waist and legs are dark green with a black belt, knee pads and boots, and there is a strap on his right thigh that holds silver gas grenades, or whatever they may be. The FSS figure Justin is looking at today is only the third version of the character and relates to the original 1990 Bullhorn. So without further ado, here is Justin with the review.
This is Justin from GeneralsJoes.com with another General's Joe and Tell. This time we're looking at the figure subscription service 4.0 Bullhorn from the GIJoe Collectors Club. Another great updated version of a classic figure from 1990. 1990 was a very cool year of GIJoe. I mentioned it pretty effectively in the Pathfinder review, but all that stuff holds true with Bullhorn. Bullhorn was a fantastic figure in that 1990 series, and the package art is done really well. Back in 1990, the package art looked a little bit different than what you see here. Like it wasn't quite so classic. The yellow and white and red explosion was a little bit different. It was more digitized back in 1990. So this isn't really an exact reproduction of what we saw back then. Bullhorn himself looks quite a bit different. Like the Inferno Bat, the picture is a little bit more artistic. Made some adjustments to better match the gear that this version of Bullhorn comes with. The original package art in 1990 had the translucent face mask kind of painted on the figure. Since he doesn't come with a translucent face mask this time around, they photoshopped that out, which is cool, nice touch. The 1990 version also had a big version of his sniper briefcase, kind of in front of his right leg. They don't do that here either because he doesn't come with that briefcase. He comes with some other very cool accessories, but he does not come with that briefcase, so they did take some liberties to remove that with Photoshop as well. But besides that, he's holding the trademark Bullhorn / megaphone, however you want to put it. He's holding the same machine gun he was holding back then, sniper rifle. The GIJoe Classic logo is here. It says GIJoeClub.com exclusive up there. Their presentation of the figure in the package is very nicely done, as it always is. To the back, and you've got a great close-up of the artwork up top there. The GIJoe Club exclusive, the FSS 4, figure number 7. And then there's the file card. Very nice file card. Most likely a reproduction of the 1990 original. Once again, my show prep sucks. I did not actually read that file card to tell you whether or not this is the same one. I would say it's probably, if it's not exactly the same, it's pretty darn close. It's typically what they do with these vintage updates. One thing that I would mention that would have been pretty neat if the Collectors Club had done so, I know they do want to show off that art, but I think we're all familiar with the back of the package. They had those other figures that were listed there as part of that same series typically. It would have been neat if they could have thrown that on and shown the other FSS figures that were in that same series. That might have been a cool touch. That being said, I really do like that close-up of the artwork. And that is a look at the carded version of Bullhorn. The actual package layout is very nicely done. Looks very vintage, a very cool, classic, nostalgic aesthetic. And Bullhorn is a figure I am really looking forward to dive into, although I'm a little bit nervous looking at the figure. I see the elbow pads facing out there. Hopefully that arm can just be swapped around. I guess we will find out very shortly, but as of right now, the figure looks great in the package, and we'll get ready to crack it open and take a look at the figure itself. This is Justin from GeneralsJoes.com taking a look at the GIJoe Collectors Club Figure Subscription Service 4.0 Bullhorn. We just looked at the package for this great update to the 1990 Classic, and now we are looking at the figure itself, which is a pretty decent upgrade to what we got in 1990. He is by no means going to replace that great figure, but for a modern update to him, he looks pretty decent. He's got all the bells and whistles that you might expect, and he's not a bad-looking figure. First and foremost, you can see the figure itself is mostly the Pursuit of Cobra Shock Viper, or Shock Trooper. I always get that mixed up, but pretty much from the neck down, that's what you've got. Which is okay. He's got great range of motion, really good articulation, some of that Pursuit of Cobra sculpting and detail work, which is tough to complain about, even if it's been used a couple hundred times since the original figure came out in 2011, 2012. But the head looks like the Pursuit of Cobra Dusty, maybe. I'm going to go out on a limb and pretend like I know what I'm talking about and identifying those heads, and inevitably somebody will tell me to shut up. I don't know what I'm talking about, and I got that wrong. But I think I'm right in this case. They gave him a black hair dye and the face camouflage that's pretty unique to Bullhorn to kind of make him tie him in a little bit better, that 1990 original. You can see he's holding that original sniper rifle, and he's got the Bullhorn itself in his left hand. He's wearing the web gear from the GIJoe Retaliation Cobra Trooper, the concept version of that Cobra Trooper that came out in Wave 1, not what came out in future waves. And strapped to the back there, you're probably just as excited as I am to see, it looks like the sniper rifle case from the fantastic Pursuit of Cobra Lowlight, which is one of the best figures to come out in the entire GIJoe line. And anytime we can get accessories from that figure out there, I am extremely happy about it. They did not include, from what I can tell, the pre-lost rifle shell, which is probably a good thing. But they did include a lot of the other components to it. So as you can see with Bullhorn here, he does have really good range of motion. Anybody who was on pins and needles when you were watching the video, I mentioned in the package portion of the video how his left arm looked like it might have been backwards. It was just swapped around in the package, and I'm happy to report I just had to flip it around a little bit once I got this bad boy open, and he was good as new. His elbow pad is now on the back of the arm like it should be, rather than sitting around there on the front. But as I said, a lot of Pursuit of Cobra parts, which means he can move really well. He can bend that arm pretty nicely. He's got those great new wrist joints, which is always appreciated. In the holster, he's got that little pistol, same pistol that came with that GIJoe Retaliation Cobra Trooper I was talking about, which is a nice little touch. I really love those removable pistols. It's great. His color scheme is very much like the 1990 original. He's got those cool camouflage deco knee pads. He's got a little, I think that's the headband that might have originally come with the GIJoe Marauders / Renegades Red Dog. I don't remember if it came with anybody before then. It may have. I don't recall off the top of my head. But anyway, it finishes the look nicely, kind of ties it into that Bullhorn who had that headband originally. Color scheme is good. Articulation is good. At the end of the day, he is just a modern update to a classic figure, which, as you all should well know by now, does sometimes bum me out, especially when the original is so great. It's tough to improve on the original Bullhorn, and the original Bullhorn, if given a choice, I would happily use him right alongside the modern figures. So in a case like this, you just wonder how necessary the update was. But I understand how most collectors out there, for whatever reason, are content and happy even to get what are simple kind of modern upgrades, which is fine. I won't fault anybody for that. I certainly won't fault the club because they are making what people like to see. This sniper rifle can be a little bit tough to get him to hold, but he can. He can't really hold it in a firing pose because his big fat stock is really not not very realistic and not very friendly for firing positions. But he can kind of hold it like that, although you can see his hand is already coming off the handle, which kind of stinks. But anyway, he does come with that weapon. He comes with a pistol that went flying out of his holster already, which he holds very well, which is nice. He comes with, what's a Bullhorn figure without a Bullhorn? He is a negotiator, which is interesting. He's the only negotiator the G.I. Joe team even has, so hopefully nothing happens to him. If he gets killed, then any kind of hostage rescue attempt is just automatically going to fail, I guess. It's not very good. They got to work on cross-training a little bit. Some kind of succession plan for Bullhorn. You can take his headband off and slip on the gas mask for when those negotiations fail. You can gas those mother bitches and go in and kill them. And that's the best thing about Bullhorn. He's a negotiator, but he comes with 2 sniper rifles. So just in case those negotiations don't work out, he can start popping caps, which, I don't know what real-world hostage negotiators come with, but I would hazard a guess that real-world hostage negotiators aren't also snipers. But, what the hell do I know? And you can see he's got this bipod and the silencer kind of kicking around with him. Those are pieces to the sniper rifle. This case is kind of tough to open. So I'm sure I'm going to pop it open and pieces are just going to go flying frickin' everywhere. There's the case with the great, sniper rifle and scope all in there. One of the coolest accessories to ever come with the G.I. Joe line of figures, which is appropriate because the original sniper rifle that came with that 1990 Bullhorn is also one of the greatest accessories to come with a G.I. Joe figure out there, which is, for those of you who don't know, in 1990 when Bullhorn originally came out, it came with a backpack / a gun case that actually had pieces of a sniper rifle that you could put together. This is stuff that we take for granted here in 2016, but back in 1990, that was pretty damn impressive. There's the sniper rifle all put together. It's awesome. It's a fantastic sniper rifle. It's got a slimmer stock than the other one. You can see there's the stock that kind of fits in the arm pretty nicely. And, the scope is, just goes flying off because that's it's a defense mechanism. But it's a great figure. Obviously, you can't hold it in a super realistic sniper pose because really none of these G.I. Joe figures can. They just don't quite bend enough. They've either got big tear gas grenade strapped across their chest, or something else is going on that prevents it. But anyway, he can hold it pretty well, and it's a great additional weapon and a nice homage to that sniper case and sniper rifle that the original version came with. So it's appropriate that you get some kind of badass sniper rifle to complement the original badass sniper rifle. And that's essentially what you got for Bullhorn. That's as if that's not enough. That's a plethora of great accessories to outfit your 1990 update to Bullhorn. So there's Bullhorn. We're going to take a look at a comparison between him and the original Bullhorn in just a minute. All right, here we have the vintage original 1990 Bullhorn next to the Figure Subscription Service 2016 update. And as you can see, if my 1990 Bullhorn wasn't horrifically discolored, the color matching would actually be pretty good. My 1990 version has seen better days. You can kind of see the difference between the upper arms, the lower arms, and that elbow there. There's some discoloration going on, which is unfortunate. I've mentioned time and time again that my O-ring figures are quickly degenerating, and it's something I'm a little sad about, but I'm not sure what to do about that at this point. But that's not a topic for this particular video. But you can see, took a lot of color cues where he has these like shin guards with that unique color. They transferred that to the knee pads, which is nice. He's got the gloves like Bullhorn does, the gray gloves, kind of the tannish brown torso. He's got, they couldn't obviously very closely mimic this little 4-grenade strand going across the torso, so they went with these 2 rows of larger grenades that came with the G.I. Joe Retaliation Cobra Trooper. They didn't have a way to do that front thigh holster, so they included the holster on the right hip as part of that. They gave him this little headband to mimic the little headband you see on Bullhorn there. The face camouflage obviously matches up pretty darn well. The figure looks like a updated version of Bullhorn, as one might expect it to look. And as yeah, Bullhorn's got a dead O-ring. Surprise, surprise, surprise. I've become an expert at balancing these figures and still being able to stand them on display even without O-rings. I'm quite proud of that fact. But you can see their butts are the same, which is why I turn them around, just as an excuse for people to look at G.I. Joe butts. But anyway, yeah, the color schemes match fairly well. Like I said, the 1990 version is somewhat discolored, which makes things a little bit tough to tell, but it's still a decent look. It's a figure where, you see it on the shelf and you immediately say, oh yeah, that's Bullhorn. It's pretty easy to tell. And sometimes you can do some very basic cues that kind of key that up, like the headband and the face camouflage are two things that immediately tie the two together. And this actually isn't the first time the G.I. Joe Collectors Club has done a Bullhorn figure. In 2008, I think it was, they actually did a kind of a new version of the Drug Elimination Force versus the Headhunters, one of my favorite convention sets of all time. I love the Headhunters. I love what they did with that whole lineup. And this is the Bullhorn from that convention set, so you can see they have some experience doing Bullhorns already. The new one is obviously an update to the original 1990 version. It doesn't really take too much into consideration from that 2008 comic convention set. But it's a great figure, and I love just looking at all these Bullhorns all lined up in a row. And that's that, and we'll take one more look at the figure coming up. Back in the good old days, back in 1990, when this figure first came out, I actually wrote, before the internet came along and ruined everything. Literally everything was ruined by the internet. Lots of things were made better, but almost everything was thus ruined. So back in those days, I actually wrote an original fan fiction that kind of took parts of that and brought them into the price a piece. But I wrote a fan fiction where G.I. Joe was essentially decimated by the Cobra War, and they kind of started a new team in 1990, since 1990 came about, and really kind of moved things around a little bit, adding a lot of new characters. I kind of used that as a catalyst to create a new G.I. Joe team, and Bullhorn was like my field commander / communications specialist. He was a character I've really loved ever since 1990, and I'm, part of me is happy that the Collectors Club did an update to him. Part of me is a little bit questioning, just because that original 1990 version was so fantastic. But I just did that comparison shot, and my O-ring figure is literally falling apart in my hands. So maybe it's good that, well, here I say the O-ring version is falling apart in my hands as the gun starts crumbling to pieces. But maybe it's good these modern figures are out there now, so people who have O-ring collections that are turning to dust now have something new they can kind of swap that out with. That being said, I don't think this figure would ever replace my O-ring version. I would buy probably a new O-ring figure and consider that a replacement before I would consider a modern version a replacement. That being said, this figure is still very cool. I really like the parts combination they did. His articulation is great. The Pursuit of Cobra Shock Trooper is tough to go wrong with. It can be tough sometimes. They've used this figure so many times at this point between Hasbro and the G.I. Joe Collectors Club. It is really difficult to look at it and find new and interesting things to complement. The elbow joints are great. The knee joints are great. The sculpting is great. How many times can you say that in a row before you say, okay, we've gotten this figure 12 times already? Yes, the web gear adds some nice touches. The accessories add some nice touches. The paint apps make them look a little bit different. But that's kind of my struggle with this modern formula where we're reusing so many pieces without swapping them out a little bit more. But anyway, I digress. That being said, Bullhorn is a nice update. He's a cool addition to the figure subscription service. I'm glad the Collectors Club is picking more figures from that 1990 era. And he's a great update, and he'll look good on your shelf. And even though he's not necessarily 100% my cup of tea, and the mindset around it isn't 100% my cup of tea, I think the execution was pretty nicely done. And I know a lot of fans are looking for this stuff, so hopefully they see what they like here and will buy it out. And that's FSS 4.0 Bullhorn by the G.I. Joe Collectors Club. If you liked what you saw here, throw the video a like. Consider subscribing. I promise I won't record all of these videos at midnight, so hopefully I'll be a little bit more coherent as things go forward. Thank you once again to Chris McLeod from the Full Force Podcast for doing such an awesome job on the rest of the video. I show up, I complain about doing these recordings at midnight. I swear I do like 10 minutes of recording, and I send them to him, and I say, work your magic, and he does work magic. He makes these actually sound and look presentable. If you look at this and say, oh my God, that's terrible, just imagine what it was like before Chris McLeod got a hold of it. Holy shit, I wouldn't subject that to anybody. And there's Bullhorn. Thank you all very much for watching. Like I said, subscribe if you love it. If you don't, flame me in the comments, and maybe I'll take some of your thoughts into consideration. Thank you very much for watching.
Thanks for watching this review by Justin Bell of GeneralsJoes.com and What's on Joe Mind, and from myself, Chris McLeod, aka Diagnostik 80 from the Full Force. If you've enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and let us know what you think on any of our numerous social networking platforms. Goodbye, and see you next time for another Generals Review.